Hello all and welcome to another review by CT Tech Gaming. This game's called Seed of Life. Now Seed of Life is an action-adventure puzzle game that will take you to a beautiful yet toxic world where almost all life has disappeared. There's only one way to survive, and that's to help Cora find the seed, which is an alien device capable of generating the essence of life, and save your planet from total annihilation. Find your way through the labyrinth-like world full of mysteries, dangers and beauty, and search for capsules and learn special abilities. Face off against alien creatures and solve challenging puzzles. In the words of one of the inhabitants, as the sun is dying, the world is fading into chaos. Invaders appeared out of nowhere and took us by surprise. There was nothing we could do. They took our most precious treasure, the planet's life force, leaving us to certain death. Alien creatures were left on the land to absorb what's left alive. To save your home, you need to find the source of life and activate the ancient machine. Let the light guide you. So for those that are new to the channel, what I'm going to do is basically go through all the different aspects of the game, basically let you know the specs, the price, the gameplay, the graphics, the sounds, if there's any bugs, and then what I'll do is give you my conclusion. And the idea is to give you a bit of an understanding of the game and see if it's something which looks like a game you'd enjoy and one that you'd like to buy and obviously play, or if it's not your cup of tea. So what we'll do is we're going to watch the rest of this trailer, and then at the end it'll go into the intro and we'll get into the review. Okay, so let's start by looking at the specs for the game. So I'm only going to look at the recommended because being an indie game, it's not that intensive. So I would expect most people to be meeting the minimum spec. It is an 8400 i5 or Ryzen 5 1600, 8 gigabytes of RAM and a GTX 970 RX 580 on the graphics. It's DirectX version 11 and it's only 4 gigabytes of space on your hard drive. So it's not that intensive at all. And how does it play? Well, the game itself, it plays absolutely fine. I came across no graphical glitches, no kind of control problems or anything like that. It plays pretty much as smooth as I would expect it to. Performance itself, I didn't find any performance drops, any stutters. So the actual game is very well optimized. I mean, my machine is a lot higher than the recommended specs, so I would have expected that. But looking how it did play, I would imagine even the people hitting the minimum or recommended specs wouldn't find too many issues and would see a smooth experience. Okay, so now the price. Now, for an indie game, it's priced very reasonably, I think. It's on Steam at £19.49 or $24.99. I did have a look on Green Man Gaming as well, but could not see it on there. So I don't know if they just haven't got access to it yet or if it's a Steam exclusive. But as far as the actual pricing, I think that pricing is probably about right and is a good position for where it to be at. It's one of the few games which I think is priced exactly where it needs to be. So moving on to the gameplay then, if we start with the graphics, I actually really like the graphics on this game. I like the art style, the colouring, the way the world looks, and also the way the characters look. It's a very nice, kind of attractive looking game. Kind of reminds me of the old kind of Fable series that used to be out, but just been brought up to modern days. Now, I wouldn't class it as next-gen kind of graphic era, but it is definitely better than a lot of indie games. So credit when credit's due, they've done a fantastic job there. When it comes to the camera angle though, it's not terrible by any means. I mean, it is just standard kind of third-person camera. The way it moves is sometimes a little bit finicky. Now, it's not game-breaking by any means, and it's not something that is going to detract from the game. But a prime example is when you're walking up to something to interact with, you have to be facing right at it, and it's got to be in front of you, and you've got to be looking at it as well. If you're slightly off, then the interact button may disappear. Now, you do kind of get used to it over time and you start to adapt for it, but to begin with, it can be a bit of a pain. It would have been nice if when you walk up to it, providing you were close enough and you face the camera towards it, it lets you interact. The other thing is as well, I found it when it comes to jumping, it sometimes was a little bit hard to judge exactly straight line jumping and stuff like that. Or more distance. So if you had a certain distance to jump, you kind of sometimes felt like you jumped enough, but you weren't quite there. Now again, it's something that you kind of attuned and became accustomed to, but I feel like the perception on that maybe could have been done a bit better. Other than that, the gameplay, how it starts is you start off in a building which is your home. Your grandpa's disappeared and he's the person looking after you. You wake up, kind of goes through a little bit of the story, and it's kind of like a nice little way to build you into it. You're not thrown straight into it. You're kind of in your building, you can walk around, have a little look around, and then you leave the house and then you start your adventure. I'm not going to go into too much on it because I don't want to spoil the actual game itself. But the way that the mechanics work, the first half hour or so, depending on how quick you are, is the tutorial. This is the linear part of the game. Now they mention that it's open world or semi-open world, and I'd agree with that. The first part of it is linear to kind of be the tutorial for the game, and what they're doing is kind of showing you the ropes and how basically the game works. Once that's out of the way, you kind of have this big door open, you go through into the next part, and then it becomes more of an open world. Now, although you can traverse the world in any way you want, there is kind of a way that they've laid out which makes it easier. So certain areas you'll walk to and it will say, oh, I don't feel ready to do that yet, and it's because you either haven't got the correct skill level or items required to physically go across there with ease. Can you do it? Potentially, but it'd make it a lot harder. So although it is open world and you can kind of move around freely, in the progression sense, there is certain ways which it kind of pushes you towards. So what do you actually do in the game? Well, essentially your planet is dying and you're there to try and save it and basically bring life back to the planet. It has a kind of Gaia which they call Lumia, which is like the life force for the planet. Now, early on, you get a talisman, which basically means you can extract Lumia from plants on the planet, which helps you recharge your special ability. Now, the two resources you have to manage is your health and your Lumia, and you can do so both from the plants and checkpoints. Now, when you're within the sphere of influence of a plant, it will heal you up slowly, but it will do it. And then as you interact with it, it will then give you the Lumia, which recharges a talisman that you get early on in the game. And the talisman will tell you where your objectives are. If you've got 3, it will put 3 on there. If you've got 1, it will put 1 on there. And it's just an arrow pointing in a direction. Now it does highlight which one it thinks is the easier route to go down. And then it also gives you your stats of health and your Lumia. And then what you can do is every time you extract from a plant, it increases your maximum storage, shall we say, for Lumia, but it will then stop regenerating your health, or until it recharges anyway, because the plants will start to create more Lumia over time. Which brings me to another little bit which I think could have been done better. Walking around the world in certain areas will start to deplete your health, mainly because it's a hazardous area. Until you get to a point where you get a special ability to help you, going into the plants or checkpoints is the only way to basically replenish health. Now, the plants do it so slowly that 9 times out of 10, unless you're just going to sit there staring at a plant for ages, as soon as you leave, it's depleted whatever you've put in from the plant straight away. It would be nice if when you abstract from the plant, it gives you a little health boost, not much, just a little bit, which would equate to just standing there for, say, a couple of minutes, because it can take a while for it to recharge you, even 20%, say. So I feel like that could have been done better, but that's only really early on in the game. Eventually, what happens is, in certain checkpoints, or should I say pedestals around the world, you can get a special ability, and one of those is to heal. Once you get that, it kind of negates the point of having to wait, but it's just that early game little bit of a pain, shall we say. Now, with the talisman, it can hold multiple special abilities. These special abilities you'll find scattered around the world, basically in certain pedestals. They have what I'd kind of class as minor and major checkpoints. The minor checkpoints are just small pedestals that when you walk over, they regenerate your health and obviously your Lumia. The major pedestals, when you get there, you have to do a little puzzle game where you got to line up the symbols correctly. And when you do that, it activates that pedestal, and it normally gives you a special ability or something in as a reward. Now, the special abilities can be a type of vision, which means you see invisible platforms which are around the place, lighting up a world which is dark, health, and things like that. There's a few more as well, but I'm not going to go into them all now because obviously that's for you guys to find out. But these are ones you get pretty early on. And these abilities all help you to basically get around the world. Every time you extract from a plant the Lumia, it increases your maximum storage, so it means you've got more chance of being able to use these abilities and sometimes use them in tandem with one another. The way the world is laid out is really nice. Like I say, I really enjoy the look of the world and how you do interact for the most part. Now, I wouldn't necessarily call it an action adventure because at some points the action is quite slow and not much happens, and you don't really ever really engage with any of the enemies in any kind of meaningful way. There are a couple of kind of aliens dotted about, and if you get close they will come over to you and suck the Lumia out of you and then the life. Now, that does come up saying R on the screen, as if like if you press the R button it will then release, but so far I haven't managed to actually get it to do anything. I've tried tapping it, holding it, so I don't really know if it's something I'm doing wrong or if it's just something that's not quite right. But then, like I said, that could be something down to what I'm doing in that particular instance. But other than that, most of it is just going over the open world. There are these plants which suck Lumia from the world, and to be honest, I was looking at these plants. There's one that kind of swims around in the water early on. I was looking at it thinking, this reminds me of something, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And then I suddenly thought about it. I don't know if anybody has ever watched Doomsday Machine on the Star Trek original series, but it kind of looks like the planet eater that's on there. I'll put an image on the screen now for you, which kind of made me laugh a little bit. So I quite appreciated that, to be fair. I would class it more as a puzzle adventure as opposed to an action adventure puzzle game. It's more just a puzzle adventure game because, like I say, the action can be quite slow in parts, and to be honest, in certain elements it can be quite a slow-paced game overall. Now, you do get like a narration from Cora, which is the character you play, and she kind of tells you what's going on and talks to a character that you only ever really see in spirit, which is one of the creatures which is damaging the world, but that's also the person trying to help you. The story is classed emotional, but I don't really ever get really involved in it. I enjoyed the puzzles and I enjoyed going across the world, but I didn't get involved with the characters enough to the point where I'd say I'd get emotional if one of them died or if something had happened as such. So I didn't get that invested in the characters themselves. But the idea of the game is you're trying to get to the planet's seed of Lumia, which is the life force for the planet, and you're trying to re-energize it. Now, there's more than one, but you've got to basically traverse the different areas of the world to activate these seeds and bring life back to the planet. Now, when it comes to the sound side of the game, the music and the kind of sounds through of the world I really do like and I do enjoy. The voice acting is average. I wouldn't say it's brilliant. I wouldn't say it's terrible. I've heard a lot worse, but I've also heard a lot better. It kind of sounds like it's been done in a studio, if that makes sense. And I think that partly comes to the reason why it's hard to kind of get attached to the characters or invested in them. It's not bad by any means. It's kind of hard to put my finger on where the problem is. I don't know if it's the way it's recorded, if it's the being overplayed slightly. I'm not too sure, but there's just something not quite right or connects it quite well with what's happening within the world. Now, when it comes to bugs, I have to say it's a very well polished game, and it puts a lot of AAA games to shame because I didn't come across a single bug that I can recall, not even graphical, gameplay, nothing. It seems to play out very well. That being said, there are a couple of features that I would have liked to have seen, because there's a dynamic in there that if you fall to the bottom of a chasm, sometimes the distance will kill you, sometimes it won't, but you can't get out of there. Now, you either have to wait until the world kills you, or you have to quit to the menu to then reload back in at the same checkpoint. Now, it would have been nice if there was a option in the menu to have reload from last checkpoint to save you having to go into the menu, or also waiting for your health to deplete before putting you back to that checkpoint anyway. But it's only happened a couple of times, but it can be a bit of a pain because it's extra steps you've got to take before you can actually just get on and play the game. Overall, I have to say in conclusion, I have really enjoyed this game, and it is a very good entry, so I can't really criticize it too heavily because I have had fun while playing it. Obviously, I've said a few bits which I feel like they could have improved, but overall, it doesn't detract away from the game itself. You can still, if you enjoy your puzzle-style games, you will really like this type of thing. Is it completely flawless? No. It doesn't detract enough from the game that I'd say it's not worth looking at if you enjoy puzzle games. It's very well priced, and it is very well implemented, and graphically looks beautiful. So if you do like puzzle adventure games, then I definitely think it's something that will be worth having a look at, providing you don't mind that the pace sometimes is a bit slower in areas. Now, if you're looking for an action adventure, then this might not necessarily be the game for yourself, but it kind of just comes down to what you're looking for. I have enjoyed playing it, and it is priced very reasonable for what you get as well. So this has been my review for Seed of Life. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please hit that like button. Feel free to subscribe to the channel. I do also stream over on Twitch, which I'll put the link in the description as well. This has been CT Tech Gaming, and I'll catch you guys next time.